Lancaster, Turnagain Law turn over my trust fund, right? And then I said, Kevin has his name, Kevin Alfonsi LG, on my trust fund, which is located at Turnagain Law, and states Kevin is the owner of my trust fund. And he is not the legal owner, as reflected by the lien Blake Quackenbush sent me and counsel, Turnagain Law, to approve the eventual payment of his attorney fees or judgments for our divorce case and for our son's guardianship case with Turnagain Law from my trust fund while we're still married. The rightful owner is Kim LG. Lorraine LG, and trust fund was stolen from Kim LG using this divorce case and plaintiff's legal name when the trust was acquired, which was Kevin Alfonsi LG. This was done after my mother's death certificate was issued in August 10th, 2021. Now, they had a first probate action, and then they created a fake death certificate for a second probate action. This document was created and entered for probate. Amanda Lancaster enters the case as Kevin's attorney and Blake Quackenbush on 1/18/2022, and Samantha Fleming leaves the case on at Blake Quackenbush on 1/18/22. Amanda Lancaster does a superseding entry of appearance on 1/18/22, and Samantha Fleming officially leaves the case on 1/18/22, which shows a dismissal withdrawn attorney information notice, not the normal notice an attorney files to leave a case. They motion for it. And then it says superseding entry of appearance, attorney Lancaster, Amanda Michelle, representing plaintiff Kevin Alfonsi, as of 1/18/22. Attorney information, attorney Fleming, Samantha dismissed, was drawn for Kevin Alfonsi on 1/8, January 8th, 2020? Okay, 22, yeah. Samantha Fleming, Amanda Lancaster do a writ together on 7/26/22. This is important. It's a trust fund writ. Several months later, after Samantha Fleming was noted on the docket to have left the case, she reappears and does a creditor's affidavit with Amanda, because Amanda can't do it alone. She's not doing this alone. Kim has never served the writ they create together. Remember, I don't have a legal judgment entered against me on the court docket, so they shouldn't be serving writs. But they're still in a trust fund, and and they've already stole it, and now they got to have a reason to get money out of it. So they had to relitigate a judgment, right, denied on me to get at that trust fund money. So Kim LG has never served the writ they created together. They don't even close the divorce case and serve writs. And there's no legal judgment entered against Kim LG. Kim LG has never served the writ they created together on 7/26/22 to garnish a trust fund, and does not have any idea it has been stolen from her to date. That's why you're supposed to serve writs before you start stealing. But it's kind of beneficial to you if you're a thief, if you don't actually serve the writ, because then you can just you're going to have a hell of a time with the bank account, right? The writ was never served to Kim Lorraine LG, the true legal owner, and it does not show on the docket what the writ was for, or that it was successfully served. This is all it says. They're not going to put trust fund writ. No, writ of execution on trust fund. We're not putting that on here. We know better than that. The writ does not say what it is for, and it was never served to Kim LG, because I don't have a legal judgment entered in the court docket against me. The writ of execution fee, AD 9ER, and this is copied from the court docket for writ of execution, Amanda Lancaster, attorney on behalf of Kevin Alfonsi. Receipt 1998369, creditor's affidavit, Samantha Fleming. So Samantha said she's leaving the case, but she shows up for this special writ. The writ says what it is for. This one shows what it's for, right? It's for writ of execution on PFD or garnishment of earnings. Well, they can't. Durham said they were never served. But Amanda says she served them, but there's no recorded judgment against Kim LG in the court docket. So she shouldn't be serving any writs. There's a word called judgment on the court docket, but not a judgment entered against Kim LG on the docket, right? Because Judge Heath already did it, a judgment denied stay. And they had to make me pretend that there was a legally recorded judgment when there never was, right? To get at that trust fund. So the writ says what it is for, but it was never served to Kim LG. Writ of execution fee and writ of execution. PFD will never garnish my PFD, even though she sends this into them, because they see that first judgment that Judge Heath did, because they have to actually go verify judgments. Does law enforcement? I don't think so. But I'll tell you what, PFD knows the liability, and they're like, we're not getting our ass in trouble. We're verifying judgment. And they saw Judge Heath had already done a judgment denied stay, right? So even though she sent this writ in 2022, and the case isn't closed, you do judgment entered, they would have judgment entered against Kim Alge, then they would have case closed, recorded on the docket, and then they could serve writs. They do none of that. They serve writs in 2022, 2024, 2025, without the case within the docket saying case closed. Top of the docket says it, but not inside, because they want to keep this mofo open for trust fund reasons. Okay, so the writ says what it is for, but it was never served to Kim Alge. Writ of execution fee, execution, that's for this one, yeah. Now, they won't say what this writ's for, right? Because they're not putting that down. But they do on this one. They say we're going to garnish your wages, but they can't. Durham says they never got a wage garnishment to do it. They just handed me papers. And everybody made me believe it. I don't think Durham knew that they were going to traffic me. But anyway, this writ does not say what it was for, and it was never served to Kim Alge. CIV 50, we don't know. And it says the writ does not say what it was for, and it was never served to Kim Alge. So I don't get any of these writs in 2022 legally served to me, because I don't know they've kidnapped my identification, and it's being held in California, you know, with Kevin, right? So the writ says what it is for, but I was handed a copy by my employer. I never received notice of it in any kind of manner, like legal process. I was never served the writ by a certified restricted mail or registered process serving to garnish my earnings. And Durham says they never did garnish my earnings, right? Issued to process server, she's saying that she did it, yeah. Civil deficiency memo mailed. You can only have one outstanding general writ of execution. Oh, really? Well, you keep serving them. You know, 2020 time. Nobody's verifying judgment was never legally entered against Kim Alge either. It's a free-for-all. In a private corporation. Yeah, free-for-all. Oh, give me my trust fund back, bitches. This was the only writ I could argue, and was issued a claim of exemption because I had notice. They handed me the papers at work and said, hey, the federal marshals served you a writ for garnishment, which turned out not to be true. And, you know, within those papers was a claim of exemption. That's not legal service. Somebody handing me off papers is not legal service. I don't even hold them liable, and a lot of people think I should, but, you know, there's like a whole coven of people that were involved, and some of these people don't even know. They were lied to about me, you know? They were lied to about me, so they don't even know that this was a human trafficking case with Kim Alge has a stolen trust fund. They don't know that. They're just finding out, right? Then she said, successful service of writ of execution on garnishment of earnings. Well, you don't have a legal judgment into the court docket, so you shouldn't have successfully served anybody, and you really didn't, and you know it, and I do. And then I do a claim of exemption from garnishment, and then the court issues it, right? Notice to creditor, claim of exemption issued, right? They give it to me, but they keep on garnishing. Why? Because there's a trust fund. People getting rich on that baby, except for me. So employer's response to writ of execution for garnishment of earnings and return of service on execution, no funds. Wage garnishment, stills were done. Now, I show the bank account of me being closed down from their writ. So they got it to the bank, and they got it to the trust fund. I'll assure you, that writ was served illegally without judgment entered against Kim Alge, right? So it's just pure theft, you know. You got a courthouse stealing, man. Wage garnishment still were done, even though I received an exemption, right? What are these? Durham's saying they never garnished any wages of mine, but they're showing things on the court docket. Remember, no judgment entered is legally recorded against Kim Alge. So why are you doing this to her? And you're not even saying how much it is. You're just saying you do it. And the only one Amanda Lancaster will acknowledge is in 2024. But yet the docket's showing them, right? What's going on? Right? What's going on? If you're sitting there, Amanda Lancaster's saying on her writ, we've only gotten one payment from Kim Alge for $119 in 2025, right? 2024. So why aren't you acknowledging these, Amanda? right? Huh? Because these are trust writs of garnishment. That's what they are. They're not wage garnishments. Amanda Lancaster takes Blake Quackenbush client Kevin Alfonsi and transfers over to Turnagain Law, where my trust fund ends up as proven by the Blake Quackenbush liens. Superseding entry of appearance, Amanda Michelle Lancaster, attorney on behalf of Kevin Alfonsi, plaintiff. Kevin changes his contact information and puts my trust statements are now in the care of Turnagain Law. Kevin changes addresses, both physical and mailing, for me as a married couple with a trust fund in the divorce case being held by his counsel at Turnagain Law. I never hired Turnagain Law to oversee my trust, and Kevin Alfonsi LG had no right to do so. That is why they refused to serve writs to me at my legal mailing address, P.O. Box 872242, Wasilla, Alaska 99687, or to my residential address of 2150 South Endeavor Street, Wasilla, Alaska. Notice of change contact information. Amanda Michelle Lancaster on behalf of attorney Kevin Alfonsi, done on 9/1/2023. The recording of this document shown below reflects a still married couple and would go with the trust fund since there has been no legal divorce decree issued in plaintiff's legal name at the time of divorce, which was Kevin Alfonsi LG. That is not what was filed. Motion to modify spousal maintenance. And I'm saying there was no maintenance. I didn't file for that. I was reporting to the court they stole assets and they turned it into this. They wrote it on the docket like this. I'm reporting they stole assets, and they changed it to motion to modify spousal maintenance. On 7/25/2024, it shows me and Turnagain Law making a payment to Kevin Alfonsi LG from my trust fund. It's not a wage garnishment disbursement, as I have not worked outside the home for 2 years. This is a trust writ of garnishment as the court and law note. The wage garnishment looks far different from the other wage garnishment disbursements noted on the court docket. It shows Turnagain Law making a payment to their client, Kevin Alfonsi LG, at that date. It shows Kim LG making a payment to her husband in a pretended divorce case from her trust fund being held at Turnagain Law. So anyway, payee, Turnagain Law, case, right there, wage garnishment disbursement. Right? And it really notes the same amount on the court docket, trust writ of garnishment for $119. Now, on the front of the docket, they're saying it's a wage garnishment disbursement, but I haven't worked for 2 years. So we know it wasn't that, and that's what my mom led me back to see. She goes, you know you haven't worked, so where's the money coming from, honey? You know? Return the stolen trust fund belonging to Kim Lorraine LG immediately and issue her a certificate of divorce in plaintiff's legal name at the time of divorce. Kevin Alfonsi LG, return all documents associated in any manner as well with the trust fund, all statements from the beginning of receiving that trust and setting it up at Turnagain Law at current date so it can be audited. You know, and Ken Goldman was the one that originally had it, and then I sign it, right? And then I do my affidavit. They put it on the court docket. Actually, was this a notice? Nope, it was the demand. I want the demand for the trust fund to be handed over. Now, they do a court hearing on stop stealing the trust fund, and that was a hearing on 6/5/2025, right? But they won't address this one. They don't have a hearing over it. No. So no. So I did. They just pick and choose the motions that they want to address, right? And so that's what they do. That's what they do. So the judge will only address the motion to stop stealing the trust fund money, not the demand that I make for them to return the trust fund to its rightful owner, right? So they did case 3PA, that's the divorce case, and it says order and referral of motion to family court master. This matter is referred to a motion the court to stop stealing the trust fund money. There it is. Motion the court to stop stealing the trust fund money, case motion 102, and creditor's affidavit for request. So they're going to do a new creditor's affidavit so they can steal from it. But what aren't they going to address? They're not going to address my motion where I said, I demand you turn my stolen trust fund over. And the court system should have seen that and said, what's going on? This person saying there's a stolen trust fund in here. There needs to be an investigation into that. You know, nope, they're not going to do that. A calendaring notice setting a hearing before the master will issue. Regarding case motion, any further collection in this matter is stayed pending the outcome of the hearing. And they denied everything, right? So they're like, no, we're going to just keep stealing. As the court has not been able to address any claims of exemption by defendant, you haven't entered a legal judgment against me. So no legal judgment against Kim Elgee has ever been entered in a court docket. And the only people that verify it are PFD office. Don't you think law enforcement should be? I think law enforcement should be looking, just like that one woman. Remember the principal of the year? She was dragged off, right? And it turned out the orders weren't even legal. And they had a judge, I guess, sign it or something. And so she ended up suing them because there was no actual order from the judge to drag her off. There was no legal, there was no recorded legal reason for her to be dragged out of her home. And then they dragged the principal of the year to Matt Valley Regional Hospital and jacked her up with psychedelics and all this other crap, right? And because her family, good old family, said she was mentally ill, you know, because she took Jesus Christ as her Lord and Savior. So was it Mary Provich or something like that? Anyway, yeah. So yeah, so the first thing I feel a court officer needs to do, just like permanent fund dividend needs to do, is they need to go into that court docket and make sure there's a legally entered judgment. Instead of all of a sudden, just like that judge, he gave court orders for her, but it wasn't legal. I forget why it wasn't legal. But anyway, just like me, there's no legally entered judgment. Now, PFD would never garnish my PFD because they could see there was no judgment issued in that court docket against Kim Elgee. There's just a word judgment, but you have to guess who that's for. So that's not a legally entered judgment. That's why you put who the judgment's for, how much the judgment is for, and then you close a case, and then you serve writs. But they're not. They're using this court case for a robbery, right? And then they were just going to show up at my house and abduct me from the home, right? Because that's what I deserve, because, you know, I'm old and everything, right? Now, my family, I'm not old. I'm like in my 40s. And because of my great-grandmother lived to be 108, right? That. And then we find out just a few days ago, this don't want to open. That's what happens. Okay, that my trust fund has been at Ken Goldman's, was passed off to Amanda Lancaster and Samantha Fleming, then taken over when they were at Quackenbush, and then taken over to Turnagain Law, you know. So I have you on my calendar for a trust payment, you know. That's specific words right there, right? And that's stated, and it wasn't in my normal flagged email because I never got letters from Ken Goldman's bookkeeper. I got 7 in a total of 4 years, so I didn't have her flagged. So I never saw this email till about 5 days ago. So anyway, yeah, it's been an interesting trip, definitely. And then Amanda, of course, now she knows I know about my trust fund and that they're stealing it. So she's doing writs, and she's doing them by email because they don't want anything legally done. Because there's no judgment entered against me legally on the court docket. But they lead me to believe for 4 years that there is, right? And then they, you know, she's emailing a writ, which that's, you got to have legal service, you know. Please see the attached document meant to enforce the existing judgment. What existing judgment? There isn't one, you know. But I don't know it at this date, you know. I don't get downloaded by God until I'm in this hearing over here. And he's saying, ask him, where's this judgment recorded against you in the court docket? Because there isn't one, honey. There ain't one. So then, it's so cool when he comes through. She shows me this judgment, right? So they took me back to court. They relitigate judgment. And then the judge, God points out they've never served me even a legal certificate of distribution. That's what they look like, coming over email from the court system. And he's like, you've only had one legal certificate of distribution, and that's what makes a judgment legal. And it's from Judge Heath, you know. So yeah, it was pretty devastating to have this happen to us, you know, and it definitely greatly affected my son. Definitely. And they'll never put Kevin's California address down here because he's hid the whole time. He's stolen my identity as well, and he's hiding in California. They've stolen my trust fund, put my identification in California. So when I get kidnapped from Alaska, where is she? She's in California. No, she's dead, 6 feet buried. We got some nice life insurance for her. Yeah. So then she serves me the writ to steal my cabins, my home. This is my home for her $35,000 judgment. An honorable judge is not even going to look at this and make, there's no judgment entered on the court docket. So she's saying, yeah, we're taking away your cabin rentals. We're taking all your vehicles away. We're taking your hot tub, and we're taking your home away from you. That's what we're doing. And then, yeah, pretty scary ass crap going on in the U.S., ladies and gentlemen. Pretty scary. And the whole time I'm pleading, you know, listen to me. He didn't file suit in his legal name. They're laughing. Kevin's just having a jacked time knowing, you know. Everybody don't like you, Kim LG. As if I give a crap if they like me. I don't care if scumbag pieces of crap that are diabolical, evil, and spawns of Satan don't like me. God lets that, you know, fly on by. Oh, they don't like you. Oh, I think I'll go cry. I don't think so. Not for friggin' 1 minute. So anyway, then, you know, she's like, okay, she knows about the legally served writs. Okay, well then I'll just serve her. I'll accidentally send it from Turnagain Law. Notice, that's where my trust fund's at. There's his attorneys trying to serve a writ, right? But she's going to send it to the wrong address because she can't acknowledge this address for me because she has me living in Dixon, California. So she can't do it. So she just tells the post office, hand it off to her. But it's still not a legally served writ, so it doesn't matter. I don't accept it. I don't care if the thing dinged it in or not. So then in March, she keeps serving me. Like, she's really getting excited about this illegal service. And she serves me in February, right? And then she hurries up. We'll go look at the February one. So it's February 4th, 2025. She just starts sending me writs all the time because she's hot under the collar for this home abduction. She's getting excited by it. And she's saying that, remember, I showed you those other wage garnishments that she doesn't acknowledge. She doesn't acknowledge the money they stole out of my bank account in 2022. And she's only acknowledging this trust writ of garnishment of 11901 that's cleverly disguised as a wage garnishment disbursement that we know was not truly a wage garnishment disbursement. And they don't have any legal rights to serve judgments anyway, you know, or writs on judgments. They don't have a legal right. But, you know, I don't know it at this date because I don't get downloaded until God comes into court with me. Right, God? You're so funny, God. So anyway, it's like, right, you. Anyway, on March 18th, 2025, she's excited, you know, because they've orchestrated this. They're going to come in. They got my trust fund, so now they're going to kidnap me from the home. They don't have a legally recorded judgment entered on the court docket, you know, and it just has a little tiny word judgment, and there's nothing entered on the court docket judgment against Kim LG. They know law enforcement or whoever they're going to get aren't going to verify it like PFD, so they're just going to do a home abduction, right? So then, you know, she's like, I'm coming to get your rental cabins, your 2 vehicles. It doesn't show any exemptions here, you know. So on December 6, 2024, the plaintiff recovered a judgment in the above court case. Oh, really? Because there ain't nothing showing he really did. Against defendant for possession of the following property. Amended judgment. Yeah, we're taking your rental cabins, both of them, your vehicles, both of them, a hot tub, and we're taking your home, right? For a $35,000 made-up judgment they won't even record on the court docket, right? And then she goes and she changes it. She's never put a judge's name before on it, but she wants me to know that she's going to add this judge's name to it, right? Yeah. And she does it bright and, no, oh, I thought it was early in the morning. No, it's 4:30 p.m. Yeah. Yep. Just unbelievable. Unbelievable. So no writs are ever legally served to me. Now, I don't know that my trust fund was held. I send this immediately to the police and I say, hey, you know, they're serving writs illegally. At this time, I don't, I think about it's a home abduction, you know, but I'm not, you know, positive. Now I'm positive, right? So anyway, but I send him all of the court case, you know, the whole thing. So, oh, good. I've got a nice copy of the court docket, right? And I'm showing the whole entire, you know, court case. And he could even, if he could read a judgment, it doesn't appear like they can. And see, that's what's really scary about the whole thing is, you know, if you have law enforcement and they don't know how to read, that's probably why so many people are getting abducted, because they don't know how to read a judgment, right? So Judge Heath made his orders on 6/15/2018, and it was a judgment denied. Where is it at? Oh, 2018. Judge Heath made his orders out on 6/15, this omnibus order right here, and it was a judgment denied stay, right? So anyway, and then he says he'll record judgment against me for a third time on 9/1/2000 on 1/1/2019, and he won't do it, right? And so then the attorneys start withdrawing the next day because Judge Heath's like, nope, I'm not recording judgment against her. And then when they did this 6/15/2018 order, they asked for motions of reconsideration, right? And he's like, no, orders denying motion for reconsideration. No, I'm not, no, you can't. These are my final orders. Now, when they go in later on and start relitigating judgment, they ignore Judge Heath. What's a motion for reconsideration? It means you don't agree with the judge's orders. That's what it means. So, and he's telling them no, you know. So he does his on 6/15/2018. And then they do a motion for reconsideration on 7/30/2018. And then he wants a request for written finding of fact to conclusion of law. You should have asked for the amended one, Jeremy. It's the one everybody wants to forget. Request for amended finding of fact to conclusion of law. So it wasn't, they didn't just do a finding of fact. And that's what even Judge Cagle does it. Nobody refers to the amended finding of fact to conclusion of law. They only refer to the finding of fact to conclusion of law, but not the amended part, right? So Jeremy does a motion for reconsideration on that judgment Judge Heath did on 6/15/2018, and the judge denies it, right? Order denying motion for reconsideration. So the judge is making his final determinations, which everybody's going to go on and ignore this judge even exists, after the date of 8/31/2017. They don't want him to exist because they don't like how he did a judgment denied against me, right? They don't want to. They want to relitigate it so it goes in their favor. Is that due process? Sounds like Salem to me. Sounds like a witch trial. So anyway, and then he does it again. What is it? Order denying motion, case motion for reconsideration. So that must have been on, I don't know which one this was. All I know is the last orders were from Judge Heath's 6/15/2018 omnibus order. So I don't even know why they're doing it then. And then when Judge Heath was supposed to record judgment against me on 1/1/2019, and he doesn't, then Jeremy Collar does a legal motion to withdraw. Samantha Fleming has a little issue with that. They always do this, and I don't know if it's just so it'll stick up big in the court docket. There's a reason for it, but I don't know the reason yet. And then my attorney, motion to withdraw, you know, Ken Goldman, right there. So he withdraws, right? Okay, then they go on to ignore Judge Heath, gave me a final judgment denied stay. They relitigate judgment. They take me back to court in 2021, right? We'll have to go way up here. and the Supreme Court's already come out. Case is closed. The case is closed. Okay, so then they get to go and get the judge to reopen it on false pretenses, and then they're going to ask the judge, we're in the case, and they're going to open it up to enforce orders. That means relitigate judgment. So that's what they're doing. So then they go and give me a judgment, but they'll never record it in the docket because they don't want a legally recorded judgment because they know it's already been judged. So that's not how a legally recorded. It would say judgment for Kim Elgee, judgment for Kevin Alfonsi, and then people would be saying, how much is it for? Because I had friends go to the court docket and they're like, I'm not seeing any judgment against you. I'd pay it. I'd pay it just to stop the harassment of you, you know. And they won't do it. They'll say there's a judgment. They'll tell me there's a judgment, but under Civil Rule 58 and 54B, they won't legally record it, right? And they never do. So is there a judgment against Kim Elgee? No. No. It's not legally recorded. There is no name. And then you go to the amended judgment. It's the same thing. But does law enforcement verify this? No, they don't. Right? They should. PFD does. They don't want the liability. They don't want their ass dragged into court over false judgments. You know, so law enforcement should be validating. No, that's not how you legally record an amended judgment. So it wasn't a clerical error. You didn't do a clerical error twice. Plus, how is judgment entered? At the direction of the court by the judge, and then also, or the judge enters it himself. So you did accidentally 2 clerical errors in a row now. So that's it. So then, I didn't even know I had a copy of this. I'm so glad. I do things and don't even realize, you know, I do them. But there's been so much paperwork in here because they just do it so you'll drown in it while they do all this fraud against you, right? So, you know, I think part of it helps is we got to imagine when you're in a narcissistic family dynamic, you're always trying to defend yourself against lies constantly. So you start learning to collect evidence even when you're a kid, right? But, I mean, look at here, wage garnishment payments. They don't, notice Amanda Lancaster doesn't refer to these at all. No, because they're stealing trust fund money out of that. Yeah, trust fund. Yeah, because look at, what does she say on her writ? Let's go look at that writ. She says that I've only made, where is it?
Mom,
hi, honey.
having some biscuits.
Are you having biscuits?
Yeah, for breakfast.
Okay. See, she doesn't put down those others. She just puts down the trust writ of garnishment from here. But she doesn't show those other wage garnishments, does she? This is a fake-ass case. And they're still in a trust fund from me, and they decided that they're going to exterminate me and my child, right? So those even though they don't even show in here. What are these? You're stealing money from somewhere. You say you are. Right? You're not putting an amount down, though. Because it's a free-for-all trust fund. Yeah, free-for-all. So, yeah, and they notice when they serve these writs, what you do normally, well, I mean, that's just law. You have to record the judgment, then you close the case, then you serve writs. They don't do any of that crap in here. This is a free-for-all. Right? They've got, and she even said, I loved it, in court, she's like, she's a pro se, she doesn't know anything. She's a pro se, she doesn't know, like, we can't read a friggin' law book just as well as you. And know enough to know that you're not applying the law. That's what we can do. But she's a pro se. She's a pro se. She doesn't know anything. So we can screw her over. She doesn't know. She doesn't know. And we like it like that. I loved it. You're yelling. She doesn't know. She's a pro se. She doesn't know. She's a pro se. Yeah, she doesn't know. There's no name next to this. There's no amount next to this. There's no case closed right after this because they don't plan on closing the case. They plan on taking it through. That's why you're legally supposed to record judgments in the docket as, you know, shown by all court systems. All court systems. because they can be easily seen by creditors. You don't have to wonder, do I owe a judgment or not? You know, because that was me at first. I didn't know if I owed a judgment, you know, and my friend said he looked and said, no, they closed the case. They didn't enter judgment against you, but I'm not seeing the proof of it, right? And then my attorney's not talking to me. See, they never closed the case, so they just keep going. Just keep going, because you got to imagine they're billing a hidden trust fund. They're billing a hidden trust fund. Here's one rate. They're billing a hidden trust fund. 8/24/2000 writ of execution for garnishment of earnings issued. Yeah. And then Durham School Bus Services said we never got any writs to garnish it because they didn't have a legal judgment entered. Oh my God, it's just like insanity. So you get mad and there's more they're showing, right? They don't ever put an amount though. How come that only one that they ever put an amount on is for Turnagain Law in 2024, right? Wow. Because I'm making a payment for my trust fund too, Kevin. So I end up submitting to court, and right after I do, the judge just right there, C-64-2020, notice to the court, the 2014 tax returns of Kevin Alfonsi asked for on 10/21/2015 by the court in a civil deficiency notice sent on 10/21/2015. They never filed the required tax returns. So I file that, and then the judge immediately puts out his orders and closes, basically, but he doesn't close the case. And now on top of the docket, it'll say after this date, he's closing the case, but he never enters what words in the case closed. That's because they're keeping it open for a trust fund robbery, right? That's what it's for. So then I file notice of fraud upon the court with new evidence. And his attorney writes back and says, the judge said you'll be sanctioned. You cannot file fraud upon the court anymore. You're not allowed. And then that was the wage garnishment disbursement to Turnagain Law, right? And then I show the police, because this is what's going to the police, that it's really a trust writ of garnishment from a stolen trust fund, right? And so anyway, because it shows it further in the docket. Then she's motioning for a pension, a 302 pension that was done on 10/24/2017. But remember, they're ignoring Judge Heath continued to work after the date of 8/31/2017. So you got to imagine they've taken a big eraser, and they erased the trial court judge in their minds, does not exist after 8/31/2017. So they're not going to acknowledge the pension. They're not going to acknowledge his final orders for divorce. They're not acknowledging anything. The only thing they're going to acknowledge is the finding of fact, not even the amended one, up to 8/31/2017. They won't even address the amended finding of fact at conclusion of law because he won't let them have attorney fees. So they're not going to acknowledge any of that because it's all about those attorneys getting that money, right? What do I put on here? Motion to the court to produce a legal divorce decree. Motion for experts. You know, that's her. Clarification for Union 302. They're still in my pension now. The only part that I got, that I never got the pension part in the name Kevin Alfonsi LG. Object to all orders being addressed in a closed court case. That's the first thing. Because they don't care. They don't care. They're going to kidnap me. They don't care what I say now. Notice of improper service of all past and current court writs done on 1/31/2025. 2/4, notice of legal mailing address for defendant Kim LG, because they'd never served me writs. So I was giving them my address. Notice of legal name for defendant Kim Lorraine LG. Demand for the trust fund to be handed over to Kim Lorraine LG. Creditor's affidavit and request attorney Lancaster, because she wants that. They know what they're going to do with that. Order to debtor and notice of exemption rights. Never. She can say she lodged them, but they never sent me anything because they don't have a legally recorded judgment. Claim of exemption lodged. What are you doing them for me? Is Kim Alfonsi LG? And then motion to dismiss self-representation. Accounting deficiency notice. We are returning your writ of assistance. There is no authority to issue a writ of assistance at this time. So that's what happened. I think when I got a hold of the police, they went and looked because I'm like, hey, man, they're not serving me writs legally. And then order referring motion to other master to master, another matter to master. Case motion 102, motion to the court to stop stealing the trust fund money. Case motion 103, and motion the court to produce a legal divorce decree. 106, they won't do this. Notice of termination of writs of execution. So they did terminate them, but no, they're putting a stay on it, which means they're, after we get kidnapped and murdered, they'll go back to doing it. Notice of submitted report, and that was my police report on human trafficking. Notice no divorce papers were ever served to me. This is no divorce papers were ever served to me with the proper complaint. They just didn't do it. They never submitted the proper divorce documents. They never served me legally because this was a fake ass case. Full return of service on writs of execution, original writs, saying that. And they said to me, oh, that means they've returned them all. They're not going to garnish it anymore at this time. So, so I demand my trust fund to be handed over to me. Motion to the court to stop stealing the trust fund money, right there. Right? And then there, they won't address this one. 2520, demand the trust fund to be handed over to Kim Lorraine Elgie. You know, they won't address this one in that court case. I'm demanding, I demand it be handed over to me. I'm just saying to the courthouse, hey man, there's a stolen trust fund. I demand all paperwork be handed over to me. And that, they won't do it, right, to this day.